Hi everyone! So today I'll be presenting to you excerpts 18 and 20 from the book 20 Lessons from the 20th Century by Timothy Snyder. In excerpt 18 entitled Be Calm When the Unthinkable Arrives, the author warns us that throughout history, authoritarians have taken advantage of frightful and unexpected events in order to become powerful. In those moments, we must remain calm and keep thinking rationally. The first example he gives is the Reichstag fire, which Hitler used as an excuse to criminalize Germany's enemies and create a climate of fear. That way, he could suspend the basic right of the German civilians. Snyder writes that, whether or not the Nazis had set the fire, Hitler saw the opportunity. He said, "There will be no mercy now. Anyone standing in our way will be cut down." The same thing happened with Vladimir Putin. He took advantage of a series of fires in order to incriminate the Russian Muslims, which rallied the population and got him elected. He then took advantage of terrorist attacks in order to kill civilians and seize control of private television and elected regional governorships. He also killed Ukrainians by transforming part of his army into a terrorist force so he wouldn't be directly responsible for these deaths. Then he took advantage of the Islamic terrorism and fear in Western Europe by hacking a French television station as though they were ISIS. Finally, they bombed Syria knowing that Germany would take the war refugees, and they invented the story that Muslim immigrants will rape European children. According to Snyder, when the local police informed the population that no such rape had taken place, Russian media accused them of a cover-up. Most recently, Trump and Putin agreed that it is necessary to join forces against the common enemy number one, international terrorism and extremism. This is believed as a way to induce a fear of terrorism so that these men can be even more powerful. All in all, this shows us that when the population is afraid, politics can appear as saviors and claim all the power that they want in order to protect us. We must recognize and resist terror at the right moment in order to keep control of our institutions and freedom. I think that this relates a lot to excerpt 10, entitled Believe in Truth, and especially the part about misplaced faith, that gives the example of the self-defined claims the president made when he said that I alone can solve it. According to Snyder, when faith descends from heaven to earth this way, no room remains from the small truths of our individual discernment and experience. This means that in hard times, politics make it look like the population must obey because the president is the only one that can save them, and that is exactly when freedom is lost. It also relates to expert entitled Listen for Dangerous Words, because in extreme cases, the feeling of submission to authority might be comforting, but it's not the same thing as actual safety, and this is exactly what Snyder argues. There is also a link we can make to the novel We, and more particularly to the 200-year war and the rise of the benefactor. After this war, the benefactor became the ruler. This authoritarian ruler probably used the terror of the people due to the long war that was going on in order to become more and more powerful and appear as their only savior. Finally, I think that links can also be made to The Handmaid's Tale, in which an extremist group called the Sons of Jacob assassinated the US president and members of the Supreme Court in order to induce terror in the population. Then, they blamed these attacks on Islamist terrorists and became very powerful. Then I also worked on excerpt 20 entitled Be as Courageous as You Can. In this really short excerpt, the author explains to us that if we're not ready to be courageous and fight for our rights, then there will be no freedom. It is our responsibility to battle for what belongs to us if we do not want to lose it. And if no one is courageous and fights, then freedom will be taken away from us. I think it relates a lot to take responsibility for the face of the world, in which there is the example of the man that places a sign, "The power of the powerless," in his window, not because he endorses it, but because he doesn't want trouble from the authorities. According to the author, he is accepting the given rules of the game, thus making it possible for the game to go on, for it to exist in the first place. In other words, by not being courageous, this man allows for the tyranny to continue. It can also be linked to excerpt 8, Stand Out, in which the author writes about Churchill and how he never surrendered even if his country was alone at the beginning of the war. According to Snyder, if Churchill had not kept Britain in the war in 1940, there would have been no such war to fight. He had to stand out. A lot of links can also be made to the novel We, and more specifically to the courage of I, O, and D. I stood up and had a very courageous plan, and if it would have worked, it would have stopped tyranny. After meeting I, D becomes a lot more courageous, and he starts rebelling against the one state too. This new courage seems to get him out of tyranny as well, since he starts having dreams and imagination and even defies the power. O becomes courageous as well, which enables her to leave tyranny and go live on the other side of the Green Wall with her baby. And when I is killed and D undergoes the Great Operation, the courage disappears, the freedom disappears, and the tyranny goes on. Finally, I think that this kind of courage can also be seen in the main character of the Hunger Games, Katniss Everdeen. As soon as she starts defying the authority, which is the capital, thousands of people start joining her cause. Her courage leads to the destruction of the capital and brings back a world of freedom for everyone. But if she hadn't stood up in the first place and started fighting, then the tyranny would have kept going. Thank you.